Hi everybody, this is LMP Games, and we are back for part 4, episode 4 in our RPG Maker MV plugin tutorial series. We're going to be making our first plugin today. So, let me start by saying if you haven't watched the rest of the videos prior to this, and this is where this is going to really matter, because if you're going to be able to follow along, you'll need to know a couple things. First, you'll need to know RPG Maker, and you'll need to know JavaScript. Now, episodes 2 and 3, both go into RPG Maker in general. It's kind of walking you through the editor for RPG Maker MV. Also a bit of historical stuff in there. And then episode 3 goes into JavaScript, which is essentially talking about some really basic stuff, like talking about variables, data types, what a function is, how they work, what they're used for, conditional statements, talking about variable scope, classes, inheritance, encapsulation, what writing clean code and writing readable and clean code is, and how it's done, and my thoughts on that, and some other topics too, like GitHub and Git and VS Code, Visual Studio Code. All those you'll kind of need to know a little bit about in order to continue to really understand what's going on, as opposed to just copying down what I'm typing and stuff, or just pulling the plugin and reusing it. Not that that's a problem. If you want to do that, feel free. But you'll get the most out of this by putting in a little bit extra effort to, if you don't already know coding and stuff like that, to learn JavaScript, at least like the fundamentals of it. Do some more research on your own. Maybe do some tutorials in different places that go over some really basic kind of JavaScript programming, and then following along with these videos. So the way these are structured is that as we go through each plugin, things will get a bit more complex. Now the first couple ones are going to be moderately simple, because we're just kind of starting out in making these plugins. So we'll be dealing with really simple things, really simple concepts. They won't be that involved. Like this plugin right now will probably make in about 30 to 45 minutes total, with all the explanation stuff added in. And then as we go further along, they get a bit more complicated. Then around probably episode 8, which I think is like the 4th or 5th plugin, I'll stop talking quite so much about explaining things I'm doing, and I'll just be doing the coding, because at that point we're going to get to some pretty medium level, maybe high medium level difficulty plugins. So I'll stop talking at that point and just do the coding, and then kind of explain generally what I've done. And those coding sections will be compressed a bit, so they'll be sped up. Just to keep the video length down. Unfortunately, we're going to have some situations where the videos will have to be cut up into pieces, but those pieces will get released at the same time. So like episode 3, for example, is going to be 3 parts long. I haven't actually finished it. I haven't actually rendered it out and uploaded it yet, but I have recorded it. And that's kind of how these will go. These will be going forward if they're longer than an hour and a half. They'll be broken up into the setup for the plugin, the explanation of what we need to do for the plugin. So explanation and setup, meaning what we want the plugin to do, and what we need to do to prepare to write the plugin, because that's something we need to do. And we'll talk about that in a bit. Then the next video would be the actual coding of the plugin, and depending on how long that is, that could be broken up too. And then the final one is kind of looking at the final result, dealing with any bugs, that remain in the full version of the plugin, and then kind of wrapping up. And that's kind of how the structure will be going forward for the longer videos. If we can fit it within an hour, hour and a half, then I don't feel any kind of reticence of uploading that long of a video. But like over about an hour and a half, it kind of gets harder to do that, just because long videos don't typically, retain viewership that well. Now, I mean, this is a little bit more of a niche thing, programming tutorial. You don't have too many of those on YouTube. And the ones that are there are like stupid long. There's some that are like, 4, 5, 8 hours long or something. But I'm going to break them up into digestible chunks so that if they're longer than the hour and a half, that you can easily kind of just follow along with them and not feel like they're being rushed or something like that. But anyway, so for this plugin, we're just going to do something really simple. And to be honest, it probably won't even take us 45 minutes. It'll probably be less than that, but we'll see. The first thing you need to do before you do anything that's relating to plugin development is you need to figure out what you need to do, or what the features are that you want. So this is a process called development planning. Jesus, brain is not spitting out things today. It's a process of which you say, okay, here's a thing I want to do. So in this case, here is what's called a user story. And the user story is essentially just a way to say, here is some kind of thing that I want to be able to do. And then, based on that thing that you write, you're going to build out the requirements, what you need to make that happen, and then any notes you need to kind of fill in the requirements a bit. We'll kind of go over this process. This is what you'll see a lot in enterprise level development. Let's turn on the focus here so we get a bit more. Actually, can we go down to database focus? Okay. So I had, that is why I had some. If you follow my Twitter, you know that today, because today is Saturday the 18th. I had some major computer problems today, mostly of my own making, because I decided, hey, this would be a good day to try and install something new into my computer. The thing that is new is fine, but in the process of doing the installation, I found that potentially my CPU cooler was bad because the CPU was overheating right after I had put in the new thing. Turned out that the cooler just has a bunch of air in it, and it found its way into the pump, and that's not a good thing for a all-in-one liquid cooler. Yeah, so I had to do all kinds of stuff, reconnect things, disconnect things, bang my head against the wall a couple times when I thought I had destroyed the cooler. And in the process of that, all the display settings for some of these sources in OBS got broken. Yeah, there we go. That's the explanation for the right there. Okay, so yeah, this is what you'll see in enterprise level application design. This process. They'll usually format these in a work item or a ticket or something that'll be in a system that tracks that kind of stuff. And for our cases, we're just going to use WordPad, Notepad, in my case, TextPad, to do this. So here is our user story. It is I want to display NPC dialog from a plugin. And let's say, as a developer, I'll actually format it into a proper user story sentence. And this is usually all a user story is. It can be longer, it can be shorter, but it just essentially says what the intended functionality you're adding is supposed to accomplish. So at the end of when you're done programming, this should be possible to do. Essentially is what a user story is. So requirements. Alright, so requirements are we have to write a plugin. You don't have to state this, but I'm stating it just because it's good to kind of get in the mode of thinking about everything in the process. And the process of writing a plugin, which we won't have gone over yet, so this is more from me than just kind of something you might come up with. Because if you haven't done plugin development or haven't used plugins before, this is not something you'll just think of. So for writing a plugin, we're showing dialogue for an NPC, then what do we need for that? Well, we need to have some way of storing the dialogue to show. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to store it in a list. So we need to create a plugin setting to store it in the plugin data. So plugin settings, dialog list. This is going to be a list of text. Should be in JSON format. Well, not JSON, but should be a list of text. Well, I already said what it was. List of text, comma. Well, it's already going to be comma separated. Is that what we need to describe this? I think so. All right, so that's all we're going to need. We're just going to need one plugin setting for that, and I guess we can add one more thing. We'll add a plugin called Enable Dialog System. Should be a boolean. Able to turn the system on and off via a script call or a plugin command. Okay, so we have our two plugin settings. Next we're going to say, well, do we need any plugin commands? We just mentioned a plugin command there, so the answer is yes. So we need to have one called, so we're going to say enable dialog system. Parameters. We're going to have one which is true or false. So true or false, or 0 or 1. One of the two. We're going to support both of these. We could also add in support for yes or no. But I think just true or false, 1 or 0, that's fine for now. So that's the only plugin command. That's the only plugin. That's the only plugin command we need, and that's the only parameter for that plugin command that we need. Next, let's see. Do we need any script calls, or essentially functions we can call from the script box or somewhere that has a script area? We need one, which is going to be enable. So we're going to use enable dialog. We're going to call it toggle. And we'll call this one toggle. Well, we'll call this enable, but we're going to call the script toggle. And that's going to take one parameter, which is going to be a boolean. System enabled. Okay. So are we going to need any script, any note tag stuff? Now, so for note tags, this is how you can supply information to tie information to a database object. We're not going to need that here because we're not really doing any of that. So the answer here is, so if we put, I'm just going to put it in here just so we have a list of what everything we need. When you're looking at a plugin for requirements. So we're going to say on this one, note tag, or note, we'll say note tag none. Okay. So these are the four major things that you need to look at when you're thinking about a plugin as far as it's configured in RPG Maker, right? The plugin settings you might need to use, the plugin commands you might need to have available, if you're going to have any script calls, what those will be and what they'll do, and then if you're going to have any note tags, what those note tags are for, what objects they're with, and the variables, the elements you want there to be in those note tags. So again, we don't need that last one, we don't need note tags for this, but I'm putting it there just so you kind of have a structure for what to think about. So, now, how should this be used? So how should this plugin system work? So we have a list of dialog that we have in the plugin settings. What seems like would be the best way to handle this would be to say, well, let's store let's have the NPC send a parameter through a plugin command. So let's see. So how should this work? Let's see. In the NPC event, have a plugin command that will send an ID to the plugin, or we'll say an index. This index will be used to get the dialog to show, and then store it in a game variable. Okay. So now that we have this in here, we have two things we need to add. We need another plugin command, one that we can use to send an index through to set the next dialog to show, and then we need to have a setting to assign a game variable to the plugin that it can use to store that in. So we need another setting up here. And then we need another plugin command. So we're gonna come down here, add another one of these in. It's gonna say get dialog parameters. And we're gonna have one that's gonna be an integer. And this is going to be the and then we're going to put one thing that here to say used to get the next dialog to show. Okay. Let's see. So what other things, what other issues could arise from? Let's think about like what problems could happen now. Like, so it seems pretty simple, right? So we're just getting some dialogue from a list based on the index we're passing through to get some line of text. We're storing that inside of a game variable, and we're going to put the game variable into a show text command to display it in the game. Seems pretty simple, right? So what kinds of things can happen? What scenarios can happen where this could break or something weird could happen? Well, what if we have an index where the where there's no nothing in the list for that index, right? If it's an index that doesn't exist in the list, what do we do in that case? So I'm going to create a new section here. We're going to say edge cases. So an edge case is a situation where there is something that can be done that can break the dialogue system, but that won't happen very often, or shouldn't happen very often. For example, this one probably could happen often depending on like the developer, but the developer would have to put in a wrong index number into the plugin command in this case for this to happen, or not set up the data for the dialog list. So edge cases, an invalid index is passed to the plugin using git dialog plugin. So what should happen in problem is that will cause undefined to be displayed in the text box. So to fix this, or to see that way to handle it, should be implement a default line of dialog to be displayed when an invalid index is passed, or when there is no dialog list set up in the plugin settings. Let me go back to doing it this way, because it looked a bit better and more readable when we did it this way up there. Make sure we continue that. Alright, so if the index is invalid, it'll show and display the text box because it won't have an index to find, so it goes back invalid and will show invalid in the text. The way to handle that's going to be implementing default dialog. So up here we need to include a setting for default dialog. Okay. So what's another situation? What if you try and use this when the plugin's turned off? What happens? That'd be the next edge case. Attempting to use the dialog system when the system has been disabled through the plugin command or script call. So when the problem is going to be that dialog system is disabled, so no text should be returned. Or no text will be returned. Because we're going to put into the system that on the get dialog function to handle the parameter, the plugin parameter call, plugin command call, that if the system's turned off, we're not going to return anything. It's just going to return a null or undefined. So in this case, we can't really rely on the default because no text should be returned. So what we have to implement is a way to determine if the system is enabled or not. If it isn't, then we need to do something different in the event. So handling implements a script call to determine if the dialog system is enabled or not. So we need to create another script call. We're going to call this one is dialog system enabled. Returns true or false. Or I would say returns a value of enable dialog system plugin setting. No parameters. Okay. All right. So far, here's our list of things here. I think we got all the edge cases now because if the system is turned off, we'll do something different in the events, but we'll be able to determine if it's turned off or not using this. And then if the we're not going to hit 45 minutes, I don't think. If the index isn't valid, then we're doing this. I think these are the only two edge cases that exist. It's a pretty simple plugin. So what we need to do now is we need to go in and we need to set up the actual plugin. So here's how we do this. First, we're going to go ahead and go into VS Code. And so we're going to set up the whole thing again, like we did for the JS tutorial one. We're going to do the same thing for this one. We're going to create a new folder, new repo, new everything. So right now, let me go ahead and grab this. I'm going to move it over here so I can see it. It's not really important at the moment. So we're going to add a new folder. Over here, I'm going to create a new folder. We're going to say plugin1 underscore dialog selector. And we're going to open up that folder. And then we're going to save this as a workspace. Put that here, save workspace dialog selector. Okay. So, first things first, we need to get the repository initialized. And then we need to push this to GitHub. Here's that mess. So before, when we were in the JS tutorial video, I mentioned this can happen sometimes. It didn't happen that time, but it has now. So this, you can ignore this. This just means that it couldn't push your branch to your remote repository. But if you go into GitHub, I actually have a Stream Deck now, so I can do this pretty easily. So if we go into GitHub, you can see we have this here now. So let me bring this over here as well. And we're going to cancel on that. I'm going to go ahead and open up the terminal. And we're just going to go git push set upstream origin master. Let's see. Error SSD. This master does not match any. Set upstream origin master. Okay, this is an interesting problem. Oh, I think we have to add it to the let's just try this. Or we try publish branch. No, okay, so it's not gonna let us do that. So let's do this. Get remote and origin HTTPS GitHub.com GRL plugin 1 dialog selector.get. Already exists, okay. Push U origin name. Let's try this. This is interesting. I haven't had this happen before. So that we've already done. Maybe we have to have a file in order to push it this way. Let me have the README. I might have to have an actual commit. Oh, done. Now I'll do that. And now let's try doing the push. Okay, we had to have something to push. That was the problem. So if we come back over here now, we get refresh. There we go. Okay, so we got that. Now we get set for other branch, the working branch. So get checkout B, working, get push. Okay. All right. So I got that now. Now we need to make our feature branch. So get checkout master. Let's say version 0.1. A. So when I'm working on a plugin, when I'm first starting out, or if I'm working on a specific version, I'll create a version. So essentially, it's a folder, if you will, branch that stores all the other changes. So the first version I always call 0.1a, 0.1 alpha. So what I'll do is I'll start by then implementing all the different systems, or well, each individual part inside their own branches. And then those branches will get merged into this 001 branch. Then once that's all done, we'll test the 001, and then push that to working, and then testing it loosely, as in making sure that there aren't any issues on startup of the playtest that are obvious issues. Then I will do bug testing off of the working version of the branch. And so I'll create a feature, like a bug fix off of working if I need to fix something. That will be merged directly into working. So it'll make sense as we go along here. So here's this first one. Actually, let me also do this. I didn't put us back to the proper view. Zoom in a level from last time. So I zoomed out for work. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and create this branch here. And then I'm going to do another branch off of this one. So get checkout B. I'm going to call it 002. I thought about doing like 001.1. Yeah, let's actually try this out. So this will be essentially like, this is going to be a feature branch for version for 001, and we're going to use this .1 to indicate that this is the first branch that's going into version 1. I haven't done this before, but I think it makes a little more sense in terms of saying that these .1, .2, .3 branches are sub branches or like different feature branches of branch 1. We'll see how this goes. I don't normally do this. We're going to see how this goes. So we're going to call this plugin setup. So all we're doing here is we're doing the plugin header basically on this one. Alright. So, we don't need this open anymore. Actually, we could probably just close that out. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it, well, I'm going to call it LMP. Oh, I'll call it tutorial plugin 1, then Dialog Selector. Normally the first part would be whatever kind of alias you want to use for yourself. Okay, the JS. So, the first thing is we have to set up the header. So the header essentially allows RPG Maker to look at your plugin and say, oh, this is what this stuff should do, and what we should display in the plugin. And then we also need to get a project going too. So let's go into... I need to close some things. I have to close all this back out. Oh, there's Steam. Okay. So, let's go to library. And then NV. Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead and hit new project. I'm going to go change the folder because this should go somewhere else. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder for this. And this is going to be where your project's going to be stored at. So the project name is going to be say plugin tutorial 1. And then for the actual game title, we'll put in the plugin name as well. Actually, we should go in just into there. It'll create the folder itself for the plugin tutorial 1. Okay. So, while this is doing this, let's go back over here. I need to grab something real fast. One moment. Uno momento. Okay, what am I looking for? Ah, here we go. Just getting some reference stuff open here that I can use if I need it later on. Okay, so for the plugin description stuff, the header for the plugin, you need to use a comment block, so that's this. Then also every new line has to have an asterisk in front of it. Then the first thing we need to do is we need to create a plugin description. So we're going to go at plugin description, and then it's just text after it that adds the thing. So we're going to say this is the first plugin for the plugin tutorial series. And then we're going to have the name here, or the author here. Put my name down here. And I think from here we just put the parameters. So the way I like to do this is I like to create folders within the settings. So the way that this works is, you know, like you've seen like a tree view list, right, where you have options that have like the plus next to them. You click on the plus, it drops down a list of new things that are inside that other like higher list option. We're gonna essentially build that with this, and the way to do that is you essentially have to create a plugin setting, but then don't give it any other information because it doesn't need it. And we're gonna use a plugin setting attribute called parent to link it to that one. So, for example, we're gonna say this one's we're gonna create a plugin setting called main settings, or we're gonna say we'll just call it settings. So the way to define a plugin setting is use the @ sign. You put in param, and then you type in the param name. So in this case, settings. And then the next part is going to be the description for the parameter. So DESC contains all of the main plugin settings. And that's all you have to do. Now, for me, I like to do 2 spaces between parameters because it spaces things out really well and gives you more room to work with, and it's more readable too. So we're going to create our first plugin parameter here, which is going to be the, let me pull up our things here, it's going to be the enable dialog system. So, param, enable dialog system. Then we're going to do a description. We're going to say when enabled turns on the dialog system. That's all I really need to write there. The next thing now we need to do is we have to give this a type. That's what the type attribute. And we're going to say bool for boolean. That means this is going to be true or false. Let me show you what I'm using here. Let me pull this over here. And I will link to this in the description for the video because this is really this is something that you should have access to because it'll help you a lot. If I can find it. Here it is. Oops, get back. There we go. Okay, so this is a web page. Let me turn off the focus here. I realized I just had the focus on, so that's kind of looking kind of weird in the window. Let me zoom in. So this is a post on RPG Maker web which is the official RPG Maker website and their forums. And this is a list, essentially a post about all the different parameters you can use. So yeah, group parameters at parent, and it creates this kind of a situation where you have like a tree view for the things. You have localization labels for the name of the parameter that can be different from the name shown in the editor. Now you can use text to specify new name in the editor. Okay, yeah, so you don't even have to use this. I feel this is a little bit messy. I mean, if you're going to use this for the intended purpose, which is to give allow localization of the parameter names, that's fine. But this is, I think, an abuse of this feature. This should be the parameter name if it's going to be in the same language. But you can use this to change the name for the parameter without changing the actual parameter. So we can still pull in the parameter as enabled, but we can have the text shown, say, whatever language you want to have this in. And then it has a description of all the other things you can use, how they're used, what the end result looks like, how to define them. You can override the label with... Oh, cool. I didn't know this. So you actually can change the name of the labels of the true or false. Okay. We're going to do that then. I did not even realize that was down there. That makes this a lot more readable. So yeah, this is a very valuable resource, so I will put this in the description for the video, and as you're working through your plugins, if you need to look up something related to plugin parameters, this is where you would go to. So in our case, though, we need to change this to boolean, and then is it boolean or is it bool? I think you can do either. No, it's boolean, the full one. Okay. So boolean, that's a type. Tells the editor what type of data it should be allow you to pick, or show you option the way the parameter is displayed to you. Default is the default value. For booleans, you should always have these set to false. Never assume that a developer wants to use any particular feature that you put into your plugin, especially if it's not a main thing, a main feature, or requires like an add-on plugin. If it requires an add-on plugin for when you enable this for it to function properly, always leave it as false and never set to true default. Never set the default to be true or on. It's just really annoying, and it's bad practice. Yanfly does this all the time. So we're going to say default is false. And then we're going to change the on and the off to enabled and disabled. Okay. One moment. So this is now done, except for one thing we have to put in the parent. So that's going to be at parent. And we're going to say settings. And there you go. There's our first plugin parameter created. So we're going to go and add in some extra ones of these, and we're going to put the next one. The next one is it a setting or no? Let's see, what settings do we have? Text variable. The text variable would be a setting. So at param, text variable. Yeah, that's fine. Assigns a game variable to be used to store dialog text. The type of this should be a variable. I think it's lowercase, not uppercase. Let me go confirm. Yeah, so lowercase. You can do variables, switches, items, weapon, armor, enemy, troop. You can use a lot of different specific things, like you can do actors, classes. Here's a list of object selectors here. These are all very useful for certain things, especially when you need to get like an item that you want to set for like a default item for the plugin or something like that. Very useful information. Alright, so the type is going to be variable. We're going to use a new property here called required. Oh, never mind. That's it. Okay, that's not what it's used for. So, if you're using something that is going to be like a... okay, so require is only for animation. So if you're going to require an animation, this is important though. If you're going to put an animation to be selected in your plugin settings, you probably should use this attribute called require, and what that will do is it will force the deployment builder when you go to deploy your game into like a thing you can distribute to include the animation selected here if the exclude unused files is chosen when they're doing the deployment. Otherwise, the file won't be included, and it'll cause the game to crash whenever this plugin does whatever it does, if you have the animation thing. I don't believe there's a way to require a selection. We're going to put default here as 1, and then at parent is going to be settings. Okay. So those are our main settings there. We also have 2 more to do, which is the default dialog and the dialog list. So we're going to put these underneath a new heading called dialog settings. So at param dialog settings at description contains all of the settings related to dialog. Or I'll say all the dialog settings. Let's say what it says. So new param, we're going to call this dialog list. List that stores all of the selectable dialog. For the type on this one, we want to use a list notation. So we're going to use text because it'll store text. Then we're going to have this list notation. So that will tell this that it's going to store a list of text. Let's see, does it show how to do a default on this? Result type mainstream value. JSON parser, that's fine. So I think we just need to put a list in here. For the default value. Which means, what that means is that we have to go at defaults, and then we're going to have a list, and we're going to have let's say replace this text, or we could just have it be blank, I suppose. Either way, we can go with that, and then parent, which is going to be dialog settings. And then finally we have the default dialog. the dialog returned when an invalid okay. So this is going to be a type of text, and the default's going to be and I think it's P0. So this double slash is called an escape. So this particular thing, /p, is a text command that you can use in text boxes that allows you to do certain things. In this case, this p will display the character's name that's in this position in your party. I think it's /p. We'll have to check when we get... actually, we probably can check it right next. This should be done. Yeah. Let's go ahead and open up an event here real quick. If you just hover your, oh, it's N. Notice P, yeah, P. Replaced by the name of the nth party member. So just P, but it's the other slash though. So we'll need to do this then, I think. So this is called an escape. Essentially it says that if there's a character that would normally be stripped out or be removed by whatever processes that would that go through and process this text, it will keep that there. So what we should see then is if we go to JS Fiddle really fast. If we have a, so let's say we do let's test equal, we have a string here that says hello. We'll just say, and then we'll have one that says oh, I have the wrong slash, that's why. So we're not going to put a slash on this one, but we will on these other ones. And you can see that we are also adding in other these escape characters as well. And that's because we need to escape out the quotations so we can turn this list into a string. So this is now an encoded JavaScript string. And what we're going to do is we're going to parse it back into a list. And then we're going to have one of these where we don't have that. So this will be test 1. This will be test 2. Test 2 will just be the list as it is. We're going to encode this, and then we're going to decode it. So, first of all, we're going to say test1 equals json.parse test1. Then we're going to do test2 equals json.stringify. So what stringify does is it takes a JSON object, whether it's a list or an actual JSON object, and it will convert that list or object into a string. So normally what will happen is this will be what process happened This will be the process that cannot talk. This will be the process that happens when you go to send an object through a call to like a PHP backend on the server, on a web server or something like that. And once you get back from that web server back to your front end through the JSON call will be a stringified or encoded JSON string, and then you'll have to decode it or parse it back into the proper JSON to continue working with it. This process, though, also will strip out characters that are not escaped, special characters that are not escaped. So what we'll see is when we do this, if we do a console.log test1, console.log test2. Now if we run this, bad escaped character at position 25, because it's looking at this and saying, oh, this is, whoops, never mind. No, that one should be there. This one. This one? No, this one. What line is it on? Bad escaped character, JSON position 25. Trying to figure out which one it's talking about. So I think we need to double escape this. No? Interesting. Well, let's see what it does with this. Run. And if we try and re-parse this. There we go. So you have to parse it and then you have to so what did I do wrong with the first one that didn't like that? Interesting, but you can see here, like on this first one here, right, how this slash got pulled out and isn't there anymore. But this one, you have the double slash here, and then when you reparse it, it's now has the one slash there. So when you bring something in through the plugin settings, you have to parse. If it's an object, you'll have to parse it back into the object or the list inside of your plugin. So if you have anything where you're using escaped characters, you need to double escape them. That's the long and short of it. So in this case, when we do this default string, we need to use the double escape for that. I think so. We'll see when it comes back in from the settings. I think it parses it once already, because there have been times when I've had to double or it stringifies it twice. So I think because I've had to double parse it before. Double parse strings coming in before, or objects coming in before. We'll see what happens with that. We may not need the double there. Actually, I've not tried doing this through the default before. But just so we can keep it so that this is as generic as possible, so it just uses the character name as opposed to hard coding some value in there. We're going to try and use this. But those are our dialog settings now. I think that's all the plugin settings we need. Yeah, we're definitely going over 45 minutes, way over. So next up, we need to set up the. Or no, that's it. That's everything. Okay, so this is the header. So a lot of people use the help stuff here if you want to, the way you do that is you use the @help attribute here. Then everything underneath this @help attribute becomes a line in your help documentation. For me, I just make a note that that you can find all the documentation of the plugin on the GitHub page. So. Okay, so this is our plugin header. So we're going to go ahead and save this. We're going to go ahead and do a git commit 001.0.1 setup plugin header. Oh, we need to add it. Git add, then git push setup stream origin. All right, now I'll put it over here onto the GitHub. Come back over here. Fresh. I'll see that we have 3 branches. We didn't push branch 1 up yet. Let me go back and do that. Version 1. Git push setup stream. All right. Now we should have the 4 branches I was expecting. There we go. So if you come back over to here, we'll see that we have our README and then our plugin file here, and if we open that file, we'll see that we have our stuff here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the folder this is stored at. So let's go back to the other branch real fast. Plugin setup 0.1. Reveal in Explorer. And then we're going to take this plugin file and we're going to go to our plugin folder, and we're going to drop it into the JS plugins folder. I meant to copy it, not to move it. As in Control, I guess I was hitting Shift. That's what happened. I hit Shift, not Control. So now what we can do is we can go into the editor here. Let me turn on the RPG focus, and then the database focus. So I'll go into our plugin manager here. We're going to select the empty row. We're going to select our plugin from here. Then we hit OK, apply. Oof. I think we need to add one more character to the header here. I think we're missing one thing. I think we're missing a colon. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. And the description's not showing either. Oh, because we capitalized the D. So if you add some new settings or potentially change some default setting values, you can actually just update the plugin that you have already have set up here. Be aware that when you do that, there is a possibility that it can remove any custom values. So just be kind of careful with that. So we're going to go ahead and hit refresh again. There's the description. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and turn this on. You can see we have enabled and disabled the settings we set up there. We're going to leave the variable set to 1, but we're going to go ahead and name it while we're here. We're going to say text variable. And then for our dialog list, we're going to go ahead and populate this. So we're going to say this is the first line of dialogue. Okay. I'll put that in there. All right. So we have our plugin parameter set up. So we're going to hit OK, hit apply, hit OK. Let's save that. Now, back over here, we're going to go ahead and commit our updates here. All right. Now we're going to go back to GitHub. And we're going to push our 001 into version 1, open 1, so to branch 1. So we're going to go ahead and select branch 1 from here. We'll leave that there. We'll just say plugin header setup. Do that. Go ahead and do a merge request. Commit the merge. And then if we go back to version 1, we'll see we now have the file there, and we have our header there. So now what we have to do is we have to go back to version 1 here on our editor. We need to do a git pull to get the dialog file and everything in here. And now we can create the next one, which is going to be to do the parameter handling. So git checkout b 001.2 dash plugin params. Plugin param handling. So we have our parameters defined, and they are now able to be edited in the editor, given them values and stuff. So now we need to be able to get those values from the editor